Hey everyone, and welcome to the Japan Explainer. We're in the middle of a special series diving deep into Japan's 2025 economic white paper. You know, that's the government's own official take on the country's economy. And today, for part two, we're getting into something that affects everyone: the push and pull between prices and wages.
So before we jump in, our whole thing here is taking these, sometimes dense official reports and breaking them down into something you can actually use. If that sounds valuable to you, do us a huge favor and hit subscribe, maybe like this explainer, and definitely drop a comment below letting us know what other Japanese topics you want us to tackle next. All right, let's do this. Okay, so here's the big puzzle we're trying to solve today. You hear all this news, right? Japan is getting its biggest pay raises in 30 years. That sounds amazing. But why do so many people feel like they're actually worse off? It doesn't quite add up. It's like we're detectives on a case, and to crack it, we've got to follow the clues.
So, clue number one, it's all about what the white paper calls the inflation squeeze. And honestly, this is something we can all feel no matter where we are in the world. It's not just that things are getting more expensive. The real story is what is getting more expensive.
You see, the official inflation numbers, the CPI, get all the attention. But when you peel back the layers, you see this. Look at that big bar right there. It's food, everyday groceries. This is the stuff that hits you in the wallet every single day. We're talking about your bento box at lunch, your trip to the supermarket. It's not some abstract economic idea. It's real and it's constant.
And this is where things get really interesting. It creates this huge gap between what the numbers say and what people actually feel. So the official CPI might be, say, just under 3%. But when you ask people on the street through surveys what they think inflation is, what's called felt inflation, they'll tell you it feels more like 10%. That massive difference, that's a huge piece of our puzzle.
So what explains that gap?
Well, it really comes down to human psychology, doesn't it? We're just wired to notice the small, frequent price hikes way more. Think about it. You see the price of milk or eggs go up, and it registers immediately because you buy them all the time. But the price of a new car or a TV, you buy those so rarely, the change doesn't really sink in. As the report points out, that feeling of getting squeezed is at its absolute strongest when you're standing at the supermarket checkout.
All right, so that's one side of the coin, the costs. But what about the money coming in? This leads us to clue number two, the elusive pay raise. Because, as we're about to see, not all pay raises are what they seem.
Okay, quick economics 101, because this is super important for the rest of our investigation. We've got two terms: nominal wage and real wage. Nominal wage is simple. That's the number printed on your paycheck. But the real wage, that's the one that truly matters. It's your actual purchasing power. It asks the question, after we factor in all those rising prices, can you actually buy more stuff? It's the difference between feeling richer and being richer.
So here's a tricky part of the story. The average wage growth number you see in the news is, well, it's a bit misleading. Why? Because it's being dragged down by a big structural change in Japan's workforce. A lot more people are working part-time, often for lower pay. But if you sort of, digitally remove that effect, if you look at wage growth just for full-time consistent jobs, the picture's actually a bit brighter. The underlying growth is there, it's just being masked.
And this chart shows another really deep structural problem that explains why younger people feel so stuck. For their parents' or grandparents' generation, the path was clear. You get a job, you stick with it, and your salary goes up, up, up as you get older. It was almost a guarantee. But for younger folks, born in the 80s or 90s, that curve has flattened out dramatically. So even if they get a raise this year, that long-term feeling of a prosperous future, of steadily getting ahead, it's just not there like it used to be. It completely changes how you think about your life and career.
Okay, this brings us to our third and final clue. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all, because it's not about charts or percentages. It's about psychology. It's about Japan's deep-rooted relationship with saving.
So let's do a little thought experiment that the white paper actually posed to people. Imagine this. You get a permanent 10% pay raise. And I mean permanent. It's not a one-off bonus. This is your new salary. What do you do with that extra money? Seriously, think about it. Would you spend it, save it, Let's take a look at how people in Japan answered that.
And the results are, well, they're pretty staggering. Look at this. A massive chunk of people, more than 40%, said they'd just save most or all of it. Let that sink in. Even when they're told the raise is permanent, the gut reaction isn't to go out and spend, it's to squirrel it away. And for an economy that is desperate for people to spend money to get things moving, that instinct is a huge, huge problem. So, the big question is, why? Why this powerful instinct to save instead of spend? The white paper points to 3 main reasons. First, there's just plain uncertainty. I mean, after 30 years of a sluggish economy, people simply don't trust that the good news is here to stay. Second, there's a deep-seated anxiety about the future, especially worrying about having enough money for old age. And finally, you got simple risk aversion. Decades of economic stagnation have basically trained an entire generation to be cautious, to always prepare for a rainy day.
Okay, so let's recap our clues. We've got the sting of high food prices, wage gains that don't feel real to everyone, and a national psychology that defaults to saving. That is a really tough